What's going on, everybody? C4, welcome back to the channel, and today it is our most ambitious video of the 2023 NFL draft season. We are doing a full 7-round mock draft here today. I had to re-record it because the first attempt of this, we were at 44 minutes when I was starting the second round. I think at a later date, maybe Wednesday, we'll do maybe an in-depth trying to predict how the first round is going to go. I love getting those mock drafts so you can see how well you can predict things. But this mock draft is 7 rounds. There will be trades, and ultimately it's going to be me acting as the team's general manager. I'm not trying to predict. I'm not looking at the Vegas odds of who's going where. I am going to try to have a complete draft for each and every team in the NFL. And when all is said and done, if you guys just want to, gotta do something, you can skip to the end of the video. We're going to go team by team by team, breaking down our picks. And hopefully you, when all is said and done in real life, like my draft, better than the draft that your team had. Or maybe they end up getting a lot of similar picks. That'd be pretty cool. But without further ado, if you want a more in-depth first round mock draft only, that will be coming on Wednesday. But we got a lot of picks to get through. Let's start. First up at pick number 1, I have the Carolina Panthers going Bryce Young. Bryce Young is quarterback 1 for me in this year's draft class. And if you see me looking down, it's because I got all of the picks and positions I want to try and get during this draft. Obviously there's going to be situations of best player available, but I want to try to just make a dream draft for every single team. And for the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young, he's like, if I had to throw a comp in, my comp on my Patreon rankings, you go check that out right now. Every single tier of my Patreon gets access to my personal draft rankings. And I think we got to get corner and safety out this week. Probably corner on Tuesday, safety on Wednesday, getting a little bit close to the draft is what it is this season. But for my quarterbacks, Bryce Young, I kind of gave him a comp. He's like a mix of Russell Wilson meets Drew Brees, and no other quarterback in this year's draft class has that current comp. I think he's a most pro-ready quarterback, and I feel like when you're the Carolina Panthers and you're hitting that franchise reset, you traded up to get this first overall pick, you got to make sure you get it right. And I don't think not only do I think he's the best quarterback in this class, I think he's the safest quarterback in this class. And if you're comparing him to the quarterbacks that have a perceived higher ceiling, the Anthony Richardsons, the Will Levises, for an example, I think it's still Bryce Young's ceiling is not that far off. And I think the only knock against Bryce Young right now is his size, and that was never an issue at Alabama. I don't think that's going to be an issue at the next level. Carolina gets their franchise quarterback. Now we have Houston. If this was trying to follow trends of the NFL, there seems to be some momentum, if you will, about them trading back. I think if I'm Houston at this point, I'd rather not go another year with, Davis Mills as my starting quarterback. Like, I don't know. Are they going to try to get like a veteran, like a Teddy Bridgewater, someone in for a stopgap? I just think all this idea of QB needy teams passing for next year's draft to get Caleb Williams, to get Drake May, who you could make the argument after Bryce Young, if you're putting in next year's quarterback class, it probably is Drake May and Caleb Williams ahead of, say, CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, depending on who you have as quarterback to, or maybe even Will Levis. But it's just so far to project that you're going to suck enough to get one of those quarterbacks, especially someone like D'Amico Ryans, who just seems like he's going to be competitive. He's not going to be tanking games. They're going to be competitive. I think it might be time just to grab your quarterback. And we don't know a whole lot of information. My quarterback, too, is Anthony Richardson. I just don't know if Houston's the best fit for that, because you need like a proven quarterback developer if you're going Richardson. You need a proven quarterback developer, I think, if you want Will Levis. I do think the pick would be at quarterback between CJ Stroud and Will Levis, and we're not going to overthink it. We're not going to go too spicy. We're going to have CJ Stroud go to the Houston Texans. There is maybe as many pros as there is cons for drafting CJ Stroud. There's enough evidence that you could, if you're in favor of him and you're a fan of him and you think he's going to be a franchise quarterback, plenty of there's like A, B, and C that you can point towards that he's going to be successful. If you think he's going to bust, if you think he's overrated, there's like A, B, and C that you can use as an example of why he's going to fail. So he is a polarizing prospect. I don't think he's a home run at pick number 2, but I think, like, again, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Caleb Williams, Drake May, they're all in a somewhat similar bubble of these guys are very volatile players. Like, there's a reason why Bryce Young is going 1, because he has a level of, if you can get over the fact that he's 5'10", everything else is going to translate at the next level. All these other quarterbacks have that little bit of gray area to them. And I just feel like CJ Stroud, I'd rather him, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his game in relation to Anthony Richardson, where there's absolutely some Gator bias. I think just seeing if you can develop CJ Stroud at 2 is probably more likely than foreseeing you're going to tank and be able to get your quarterback next year. So moving on to pick number 3, Arizona is another team that's looking at trading up. And if we were going buck wild with trades, which is not necessarily the case here today in video, what would I do if I'm Arizona? If I'm Arizona, we got a defensive head coach in Jonathan Gannon, who's an absolute tool, but he's a defensive head coach. You have so many holes and needs. The question now becomes, and I'm going to steal this from my first take video, which was 40 minutes of the first round. We're already getting kind of long here. Is like, if you're Arizona right now, you're trading back with a team that wants a quarterback, that wants to leapfrog Indianapolis. You're going to get likely a first-round pick next year, an extra first-round pick next year, which, if you have those 2 first-round picks next year, you're tied to the quarterback spot, right? So those are going to be 2 picks that, like, you're going to need to get a game changer. You're going to hope that you can maybe trade up and get a game changer or whatever. You're going to try to trade up and get someone that's like Will Anderson. Generational, borderline generational, blue chip pass rusher. Or you just stay here and get Will Anderson. It's that whole, like, do you want Will Anderson or do you want a box that could be Will Anderson? So in my opinion, if I'm Arizona, while I get, having more swings with more first-round picks on hitting on players, I'm still going best player available. I'm getting Will Anderson Jr. He's kind of guy that can transform our defense. You get a defensive head coach. Seems kind of easy. Moving on to Indianapolis at pick 4. Back-to-back former Philadelphia Eagles head coaches. We got Gannon Gold, Will Anderson, and I'm going to have Shane Steichen get Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. I think stylistically, obviously lines up a little bit more with the quarterback that Steichen had the most success with in the NFL and got his head coaching job off of, which is Jalen Hurts. And I feel like a lot of similar traits between Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson. I can say this as a Florida Gator fan. He seems, between the ears is obviously what separates Jalen Hurts. He's such a leader. His work ethic to develop into the player. But I think if it comes down to it, I think Anthony Richardson is a very coachable player from what I can see. Was set up to fail at Florida, unfortunately. Billy Napier did not do him any favors. And the comparison is between Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Anthony Richardson is 3 years younger than Will Levis. So understanding that both these quarterbacks are developmental type quarterbacks that are going to need some room to grow and develop into their ceiling. Give me the guy that's 3 years younger. That's the best pound-for-pound athlete, regardless of position, in this year's draft class, with a head coach who has had proven NFL success with a similar style quarterback. Seattle at pick 5. Again, I have trades in this mock draft. I just think with Seattle, what do you need? What is Seattle's biggest need? You can make the argument a 3 technique on the defensive line is the biggest need for Seattle. And if they did their homework, a blue chip player who will be a 3 technique, he can probably play everything, but likely a 3, is Jalen Carter. And I think that's where the free fall stops. Blue chip player, as long as the off the field, you cross off all that, easy pick for Seattle. Detroit at 6, another easy pick. They need a quarterback, especially after trading Jeff Okudah to the Atlanta Falcons. Seems like they're ready to move on. And they have their pick between 2 players. And in my mind, Dan Campbell sat in a room and interviewed both these guys. Which of these 2 players, based off what I can tell from their tape and personality, would Dan Campbell fall in love with? And the answer to that is Devon Witherspoon. The funnest tape of a non-skill position player in this year's draft class. He can hit, he can tackle, he got that dog in him. He's a perfect fit for what Dan Campbell wants on the defensive side of the football. Vegas is up next at pick number 7. This one here, a little bit interesting, I think, on the value, because now you're Vegas. You kind of need everything that's available here. You could go Paris Johnson at tackle. You could go Tyree Wilson at edge rusher. You could go Christian Gonzalez at corner. So we're going to pay a little bit of an homage to Al Davis here and getting him the most Al Davis player from like a pure athletic standpoint. If we're throwing Anthony Richardson out the window, Christian Gonzalez he's in that area code for the most freaky athlete player. Super high RAS, 9.8, like a perfect 10 RAS is generational. I think anything above like a 9.5 is an S tier type athlete, obviously. And Christian Gonzalez fits that mold. So a little bit of an homage to Al Davis. If they're not going quarterback, which I don't think with the Jimmy Garoppolo signing, they're going to be rushing to get a quarterback, grab a corner there in Christian Gonzalez. Nice development option. Very easy selection here up next as well, as the Atlanta Falcons are going to draft Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas. Now, he is not my edge 2, even though he's the second one off the board. I'm a little bit lower on him than most. Still a first round grade. I like what I can see. Nolan Smith and Myles Murphy, even Lucas Van Ness to an extent, have like gone out and proved that they're freak athletes. We're just assuming that Tyree Wilson is one. When I watch Tyree Wilson play, I see a guy that wins with length. Definitely a powerful player. but not great bend. And bend is something that's very important to pass rushers, and usually it's not correctable. Kind of either have it or you don't. I remember Philadelphia drafted Derek Barnett at Tennessee. I think he was 14, and the idea was like a powerful player, good hand fighter, but not the best bend. Maybe you can develop it out of him. Never really became the case, and I feel like that could be a potential knock against Tyree Wilson, but he is, we're going to factor a little bit of Las Vegas in here. Not going to go completely in my personal opinion. I think Tyree Wilson still be on the board at 8 there for Atlanta. Would be a very easy selection for them to make, as edge is arguably their biggest need. Chicago at pick 9, easy selection, top tackle for me in terms of where he's at right now, and his ceiling is Paris Johnson Jr. Protect Justin Fields. Do they overlap Paris Johnson? I feel like he might have been playing like guard or something when Justin Fields is there. Either way, it is what it is. Now, here comes the eye roll, because here's going to be our first trade. I honestly, I don't know if it's going to do it again, my first mock draft where I pretty much just got through the first round, my 2 trades were of the Eagles pick. It's easier for me to make trades and think about trades as an Eagle fan, but tendencies from past drafts highlight that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to trade down when they can. And in this position, there is going to be someone that wants Will Levis. Here's my trade. It's very rare, but we've seen it happen when Philadelphia traded with the Dallas Cowboys to leapfrog the New York Giants to select Devonte Smith. We are going to see it right here as the Washington Commanders. I don't know exactly what the total compensation is, but for this, we're going to do 16. Maybe we'll give him like a future 3. We'll just do something like that again. But ultimately, I think for Washington to move up 6 spots, it's going to be a first and a second. Not going to have to trade off multiple first-round picks. You still don't deplete your draft board. But if I'm the Commanders, I am just not buying the Sam Howell talk. I like Sam Howell as a player. I thought there was a chance during last year's draft cycle, like he might have been quarterback 1 for a certain period in time. But ultimately, you went through Carson Wentz, then you benched Carson Wentz for Taylor Heineke, journeyman quarterback. Then you brought back Carson Wentz at the time. Like, he just kept getting passed over by mid quarterbacks, and now we're all just supposed to believe that the Commanders are fine with him as their starting quarterback next year. They're about to have brand new owners. You have a playoff caliber team minus the quarterback spot. Why not go get someone like Will Levis, who you can make the argument, he's like, obviously Anthony Richardson's not the most pro-ready right now. You want a little bit of a slow burn there. You could say Will Levis, there's an argument to be had that maybe he's the second most pro-ready quarterback in this year's draft class after Bryce Young. I just think the Commanders need to be aggressive to go and get their quarterback. This is the do or die. Right at the top 10, you're going to have to trade up into the top 10. I think there's going to be plenty of teams offering the Philadelphia Eagles that whatever compensation they're going to have to get. And they all want Will Levis. And we'll see again how things work out in the back end of this draft. But Philadelphia trading down like that is perfect for a certain player that I want to get, and I think they will get if they do trade down, but we'll see if he's still available. Tennessee up next at pick 11, and it's just weird for the Titans to not have a great offensive line. So that is what we're going to do here for the Titans. We're going to get them Peter Skoronski, who's either going to be a very good tackle or a very good guard. Either way, for my mentality, we're going to plug and play them at right tackle, or you can even make him Taylor Lewan's replacement at left tackle. Tennessee always builds during the trenches. I think that'd be a very safe pick for the Titans, who, the last time they swung big on a tackle, didn't work out well. He was like, just didn't care about football. That guy they had to, who was it, Wilson? Isaiah Wilson. Skoronski kind of rights all the wrongs from that botch pick. Pick 12, we have Houston back on the clock. This is an interesting one. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba would be maybe my favorite selection, but I have more than enough respect in John Mechie. I think Mechie could be their slot guy, and Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be like a very good slot. I'd rather go with John Mechie, giving him a little bit more opportunity, and go on the edge. And I'm going to get Lucas Van Ness. Try to get somebody skill set wise is kind of like a Bosa, like a Nick Bosa, and I guess you kind of get that in Lucas Van Ness. It's just hard to imagine DeMeco Ryans, a defensive head coach, with 2 first-round picks, not at least getting one guy on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't know. This might not be a favorite pick for the Houston Texans, but Van Ness is high ceiling. He's never really been a starter at the college level, but he's an outstanding athlete, and there's a lot of tools there that can get developed into a premier pass rusher. Jets at pick 13. I'm going to have them get Broderick Jones, the tackle. I just assume with the Jets that tackle's a big need everywhere. I assume that's still assuming Mekhi Becton's coming back. You just need, you can replace Fant or whatever. So Broderick Jones, outstanding tackle from Georgia, easy first-round pick, and maybe even pissed off the plans of the Patriots, who I think will also be intrigued on a tackle. With tackle going off the board, if I'm New England, Get someone that's exciting on the offensive side of the ball. I have them going Jackson Smith and Jigba. Bill Belichick will value a slot wide receiver more than anyone because he knows that they can be absolute game changers. And Jackson Smith and Jigba is pretty much a clone of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he will have similar success that we've seen with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot as a wide receiver one, the focal point of the Lions passing offense. That's what JSN can be for Mac Jones or whoever ends up being the Patriots quarterback this coming season. Green Bay at 15. This is an annoying pick for me as an Eagle fan because he'd certainly be on my board, but I think Green Bay, they just need safety help. So that is a big priority for them. So they're going to get the only first-round grade safety in this year's draft class. Very similar to the Patriots getting JSN, who seems like the only safe first-round pick wide receiver, even though I will actually probably have some wide receivers going in the first. Same can be said for safeties. Not a strong safety class. Bryan Bresee, even though he didn't test like an S-tier athlete, is easily the most complete safety in this year's draft class. He can do a lot of things. He's going to be able to contribute right away for the Green Bay Packers, and we'll just plug and play him at one of these safety spots there, which is really, they need a free and a strong safety in Green Bay. Philly, probably be annoying at that because you would love to see, other options than the obvious here. At pick 16, if this was actually the board for Philly, we'd probably be considering maybe these pass rushers first, but you know me, I'm going Bijan Robinson, and I'm not a Bijan or bust. There is a segment of Philadelphia Eagle fans that, like, if we don't get Bijan Robinson, they're going to be pissed. They're going to take to the streets with pitchforks, Howie out. I'm stuck in the middle. I think what Bijan Robinson does for the Eagles as a Super Bowl contender next season is more impactful than any other player in the first round that we can get. We're able to acquire an extra second-round pick, trading down with a team that needed a quarterback. So, like, mission accomplished. And, like, we get Myles Murphy or a Nolan Smith. We go edge rusher. Build through the trenches. That's what Howie Roseman likes to do. Myles Murphy is going to be probably edge 3, maybe even edge 4 behind Derek Barnett. That's probably what just the outlook of him as an edge. Nolan Smith is going to be the backup behind Hassan Riddick. So, like, maybe there's an injury. That pick might age well. But Bijan Robinson is going to be running back 1, talent-wise, behind our offensive line, minimum top 10 running back. Our running back room of Bijan Robinson, Rashad Penny, who now Rashad Penny, you don't have to worry about him staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be awesome when he rotates in, and Kenny Gainwell as your receiving back. Our running back room is going to be ridiculous. It's going to make Jalen Hurts, who just got paid big-time money, his life even easier because you're going to be able to, less wear and tear on the quarterback, less design runs because you just give it to your freaking blue-chip running back. He's going to be our 4th receiver. A lot of people say Philly needs a slot wide receiver. That's in our offense with the bodies and guys that we get to feed. That's our 4th receiver. That's Bijan Robinson. He can catch over the backfield, no problem whatsoever. You got 5 years. You got 4 rookie years, 5th-year option, 5 years of high running back play, and then you can decide whatever. I'll take a 5-year S-tier running back versus a 5-year developmental edge who might not ever become something. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, I think the opportunity cost for Philadelphia, and I say that all understanding. If you're someone that's anti-Bijan Robinson, anti-running, I agree with almost everything. I just feel like at this point in time, with where we're at, with the landscape of the NFC, get a guy that's going to be a game changer. I think this is the year. Almost any other year, I would be like, no, let's just keep acquiring more picks. Let's build through the trenches. Let's respect Howie Roseman's mantra of roster building. I think this is the fucking year where you say, we're getting Bijan Robinson. We're going to make literally the rest of the NFL groan when they see the selection because they know just how much more difficult the Philadelphia Eagles became to beat next season. Joey Porter Jr. going to the Steelers. Very easy pick. Not even nepotism. I think it's just the best fit for their defense. Outside corner. Great athlete. Easy selection. Detroit up at pick 18. And if you're the Lions, I think here maybe a little bit of a surprise pick. I would go on the defensive line, Bryan Bresee. I think there's some upside there. Maybe a slight reach given this board. But I think that the Detroit Lions definitely are going to be in the market for a new 3 technique. And I think he could start right away and give you guys an upgrade over, who's your 3 tech right now? Onwuzurike. Get a little bit more juice out of Bryan Bresee and one of the highest ceilings for the defensive tackle in this year's draft class. Tested like an absolute monster. Tampa Bay at pick 19. I'm going to have them select Darnell Wright, left tackle. Immediately an upgrade over what you had last season in Donovan Smith at tackle. Seattle at pick 20. We're going all Georgia. All Georgia Bulldogs for their 3-4. Nolan Smith, Boy Mafe, Darrell Taylor as your edge rushers in that 3-4. Good luck. You're going to be able to get out the quarterback. It seems like someone like Pete Carroll would love to be able to develop Nolan Smith. And, you pair that with Jalen Carter. That is a significantly improved defense. It could go quarterback, you could, but I don't think you're getting a 25-year-old quarterback at this point, given what they did with Geno Smith. So let's just continue to build on the defense. Chargers at pick 21. Now, they're an interesting team. I'm going to have them go with a safe tight end. I feel like the Chargers and this selection is similar to the Philadelphia Eagles and Bijan Robinson. There's not a lot of glaring holes for the Chargers. Chargers fans are like tight end. Maybe you look at wide receiver, an edge rusher, a linebacker potentially. I just think you go with the safest, most pro-ready tight end right now that can help you move the needle. Gerald Everett is not a traditional tight end. If he even makes the roster, I know there's been some people saying he might get cut or whatever. But someone like Michael Mayer, proven, can block, safety net, great weapon for Justin Herbert going forward. And it's a win now type move. And the Chargers, this might be it. They don't go on a run. There could be some turnover there if they're coaching. So get someone that can contribute right away. Baltimore at pick 22. Get Lamar Jackson some weapons. I like Zay Flowers going to the Ravens. Given that you got to kind of build off their current wide receiver room. They got Rashad Bateman, who's an outside player. Zay Flowers, inside-outside versatility. Probably is going to find his success at the next level at the slot position. But with Zay Flowers, you're getting a guy that honestly reminds me of Antonio Brown. And if you're getting that, that might help. That might help Lamar Jackson mend some of those wounds and come right back. We have Minnesota at pick 23. We're going to have them go in the secondary and get Deonte Banks, height, weight, speed corner out of Maryland. And I think the Vikings are going to kind of go very aggressive in replaying and replenishing and retooling their secondary this year. And Deonte Banks has a whole lot of tools. 6'1", elite length. He ran 4.35. It's almost 6'1", 200 pounds. That's a whole lot of upside. Whole lot of upside for the Minnesota Vikings. Jacksonville at pick 24. I'm going to have them go Myles Murphy. Edge rusher might not be the biggest need for the Jags. Jags don't have a lot of crazy needs right now. They could go tight end potentially, but I think if what made them sell whoever, the coach, the front office, last year going Travon Walker, you're going to like all those exact same traits in Myles Murphy. Might not have the college production, but he's a ridiculous athlete with a very high ceiling. So you're going to pair that with, he'll go on one side, Josh Allen on the other, Travon Walker on the D-line. It's just a more versatility, more pass rush for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Giants at pick 25. This is a tough one. I'm not the biggest fan of this pick if I was a Giant fan. But, are you going to go center in the first round? Probably not. Are you going to go corner and just kind of reach? Probably not. So why not get something you don't currently have? If you're making this commitment to Danny Dimes, get him a weapon. They don't have anyone stylistically that kind of offers what Quentin Johnston does. Height, weight, speed, outside wide receiver. He's going to be an X most likely at the next level. You got a lot of slot guys right there, but you got to get someone that can be a big play factor on the outside. And I think at this point in time, you might need to pull the trigger at Quentin Johnston. Yes, there's bust vibes. Could be Kevin White 2.0, but I think that's a risk you kind of need to take if you're the New York Giants right now to win. Now, Dallas at 26. I'm going to have them go Dalton Kincaid. Pretty much a carbon copy. If you look at a lot of player comps to Zach Ertz, Dallas needs a tight end. Someone that come in and replace Dalton Schultz. I think the tight ends they have on the roster right now aren't brutal. Like Hendershot and I'm brain farting on the other one, but none of those guys are Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is a ready to contribute right around tight end 1 next season as a rookie. Buffalo at pick 27. Here's where I'm going to surprise a little bit. I think linebacker's an interesting one. I think they could, but I think they might just wait and go linebacker in the second round. Right now, I just kind of go with, you got Khalil Shakir in the slot. It's probably better than that. What probably helps continue to make your offense unstoppable. They've been linked with wide receivers. They wanted Odell and DeAndre Hopkins and all this stuff. Until anything that happens, they're interested in wide receiver. And you got Jordan Addison, who's been, over the last 2 years, one of the smoothest, most consistent wide receivers. Former Biletnikoff winner. Doesn't have the great size and speed that you're looking for. But as far as technical ability, you plug and play him in the slot. You have him, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis needs to get paid, right? I don't think he's got his contract. Things might not work out. You might need another guy with Stephon Diggs. Or you've had all these Stephon Diggs could get trade rumors. Jordan Addison offers a little bit more stability to that wide receiver room. He's going to be a day one contributor for this team that's looking to contribute and find a way to get over the hump to win a Super Bowl next season. Cincinnati at 28. We're going to have them get Darnell Washington, tackle, 6th tackle / tight end out of Georgia. Just, again, luxury pick. They need a tight end. They need to improve, keeping Joe Burrow upright. You kind of get the best of both worlds here in Darnell Washington versus, at this point, really reaching for a lineman. or, you know, you go running back. You could go Jahmyr Gibbs if they're ready to cut ties with Joe Mixon, but I don't know how far along, you know, Joe Mixon has burned bridges there. So we're going to go with maybe the safer option here of Darnell Washington. Saints at pick 29. They need to go on the defensive line. I'm going to have them get Calijah Kancey, who's going to be able to come in immediately and be a new starting 3 technique. And if things don't work out, I mean, Kancey has historically short arms, a lack of length that's kind of masked by playing on the inside. But I do think there's a lot of similarities to his game to Cam Jordan to it a little bit. So you get, you know, a stylistically someone else on the defensive line that is similar to a Cam Jordan. I think Calijah Kancey makes a lot of sense. Now, here's the first time I made this trade. I think, again, Philadelphia, track record. Philly has traded. This is what happened with Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. We had a late pick the year we won the Super Bowl. We traded out of the first round, so a team that wanted to get that 5th-year option on a quarterback was able to get it. And there is one quarterback left that is worthy of that. And I already know. I'm doing it, though. And we're not going to cheese it too much. I just more so want to try to get this right. Philly's going to trade pick 30 to the Tampa Bay Bucks. They're going to get a 2nd round. And just to make it so we're not hoarding. I don't want... It's already bad enough that I'm going like all these picks for the Eagles. I don't want to have like 8 third-round picks where I can just kind of cheese it with the guys that are slipping. So we're going to go... Philly's going to pick up a 2nd and a 3rd-round pick to move out of... Nah, do I want to do that, though? Like, am I really getting... We'll get a 5th, too. A 2, a 5, and a future 2 to move out of 30, to go down 20 spots so that Tampa Bay can come up and get Hendon Hooker. So for the sake of this video, for me not to just hoard a crazy amount of picks, I already don't like the optics that I've done my 2 trades with the Eagles. But as an Eagle fan, it's just easy for me to relate. Like, these are very trigger points in the draft where trades could happen, or just happen to be where Philly's picking in the 1st round. So Tampa trades up, gets Hendon Hooker as their new quarterback, and then Kansas City here at pick 31. I'm going to have them go on the offensive line, get an Orlando Brown replacement. You like they bought into Orlando Brown not being great of an athlete, pretty much a man mountain. Replace him with a man mountain, which is Dawand Jones. Should be plug and play. Get Juwan Taylor at left tackle. Dawand Jones should be able to come in and compete right away and win that right tackle spot playing alongside Trey Smith. All right, fellas, I had to cut it, man. I was at an hour and a half, and I'm still in the 3rd round. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cut this video at the end of the 1st round. We're going to have this little explanation, and then I'm going to come back once I'm done the 7-round mock draft for all these teams. I'm going to go through team by team. Right here, you can see we can go, like, we got Cleveland, we go to Dallas. I don't want to spoil any of these picks. But we'll go, round by round, every single team's pick and justify our draft class haul. It's just way too long. Like, this would be a 3-hour video if I just talk through every single pick. So we'll be back once I finish this thing, and we'll break down every team. So the draft has completed. That took it's almost 6 o'clock. I started this video at 3. That's fine. We are here. We're going to go through alphabetically Arizona Cardinals all the way down to the Washington Commanders. And we're going to recap our 7-round mock. So we started with the Cardinals. We started with Will Anderson. Then I wanted to get him a nice ball hawk at corner in Emmanuel Forbes, a replacement for Byron Murphy. Zach Pickens is going to be a 3 technique. Tyjae Spears at running back was great value here according to this. I'm not going to throw these grades too much validity. It is what it is. But James Conner is, looking like old legs every now and again. So I think Spears could be nice. Ja'Cory and Bennett would be your slot. Bryce Ford Wheaton, height, weight, speed, a dynamic playmaker at wide receiver. And he finished with a center and a safety. Some nice value there. And let's be honest, Juice Scruggs is an all-time name for this draft. Look at the Atlanta Falcons. After Tyree Wilson in the 1st round, we got Cam Smith, which is nice value in the 2nd round. He's a guy that some people consider might be a 1st-round corner. He's a little handsy, a little aggressive, but that works sometimes as long as they can maximize that. We got Cedric Tillman at 75, which some people might think is a great value. Nice wide receiver there. As I think and he kind of fits. He's 6'3". They like building a basketball team there at wide receiver for Atlanta. We got Tank Bigsby to be a nice running back, long term. I think a nice backfield of Bigsby and Algier should be nice. Owen Popo, nice speedy linebacker a la Deion Jones. And then we finished up with some building through the trenches late in the draft. Baltimore Ravens. We started with Zay Flowers. That's going to be an interesting one. We'd love to hear what Raven fans think about that. I got Garrett Wilson at corner at pick 86. He's a guy that I think might be a little bit higher during the draft process if he didn't get an injury. Good ball hawk. We got Bradford, who's a height, weight, speed, Raz monster at guard. Very athletic, kind of fits the mold of what they look for, like Tyler Linderbaum last year. Then we just got solid BPA-type picks here in Dylan Horton and Cam Young alongside the defense. Buffalo. I got Jordan Addison, kind of surplus, going overkill at the offensive skill position spots. Trenton Simpson, is kind of my Micah Parsons of this year's draft class. I think, don't put him in a box. He can play linebacker. He might be able to be a pass rusher. I don't know what he's just an outstanding athlete that I want to gamble on the trees. I was very close to actually trying to get him and trade up for him for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he'd be awesome in that Hassan Reddick role. But he goes to Buffalo, where they do need some linebacking help. We got Blake Freeland, who kind of fits the Spencer Brown pick of the Bills, where they like to try to develop athletic freaks at tackle, and that's exactly what Freeland is. Roy McGuire and Trey Dean tripling up on the SEC for the defense, just adding some depth there for the Bills. Carolina. So after Bryce Young, we stayed in the state and got Josh Downs from North Carolina. Watched a lot of games. Him and Drake May were outstanding. And I feel like Josh Downs, when all is said and done, could be Bryce Young's favorite target if they go ahead and do this. Right now, who's he throwing to? Adam Thielen, Laviska, Chenault, someone like Josh Downs, a little bit dynamic, more, and it offers a different skill set than what's currently in the wide receiver room for Carolina. Like he's like a more juicy Shi Smith. Get my out the gutter. We got Byron Young, 4.40 40-yard dash edge rusher, which should fit that 3.4. Brenton Strange, developmental tight end, and then we just kind of finished with BPA here. Terrell Smith at corner, and Orji, who's a great Raz linebacker, very athletic linebacker out of Vandy. And we know based off of last year's draft, Carolina loves drafting athletes. Who they got? Brandon Smith was like a prime example of that, or Barno. Kind of fits in the mold. Orji. We got Paris Jones for Chicago, and then into the second round, I got a great value in Isaiah Foskey. Height, weight, speed, 6'5", ran a 4.5. Lots of good production at Notre Dame. I got Javon Dexter to come in to be either 3 technique, great athlete. Darius Rush at corner, converted wide receiver, 6'2", ran a 4.3. That's just a lot of upside that I want to try to gamble on. We got Rice, very good value pick at 103 at wide receiver. And then honestly, I think outstanding draft when all is said and done. You got Chris Smith, so proven SEC, solid, reliable safety. Yaya Diaby's a twitched-up edge rusher. You got Kendre Miller, only 20 years old. Nice young running back to pair with, that room there that's trying to refine their identity post David Montgomery. We got Max Duggan, who, it's only a matter of time with his play style till Justin Fields gets rocked. And it's better to have at least a mobile quarterback. Max Duggan ran a 4.5 to come in and substitute so you can somewhat keep the identity the same versus having Trevor Siemian, who can't run even the remotely same playbook that Justin Fields can. Then we get a center there in Javon Gwynn routing out the draft. Cincinnati. So we got Darnell Washington, which was surprising. So that's a pick. Like when I went through that first round, I was like, if I did something that was kind of suspect, maybe 50-50 at best, I wanted to try to hammer home and hit on the remaining picks. And I think that we did it with the Bengals here. We got Tyreek Stevenson, long outside corner. We got Devin A. Chain. So if Joe Mixon stays, that's just another weapon, another player, much like Darnell Washington, that's going to help the Bengals this year. They're going to get on the field this year, and the Bengals need all hands on deck to try to compete in the AFC. We got, just some back-to-back edge rushers here. Tyler Sweet, Jose Ramirez, a lot of production in Eastern Michigan. Braden Daniels for me, one of the higher-tier RAS scores for an offensive lineman, can play guard, can play tackle. Feels like he can play everyone on the offensive line, so that's a good versatility there. And you can't go wrong with an Alabama D lineman. Cleveland. So I took a minute for the Browns. They didn't have a pick. So we went in-state. We got an athletic freak to put on the other side of Myles Garrett and Zach Harrison. We got Henry To'o from Alabama. Productive. A little tough to project how he's going to succeed in the next level, but it is what it is. There was okay value getting him at 98. 111, we get a potential steal in Kayshon Boutte. As a freshman at LSU, he looked like he was going to be the first wide receiver off the board. It's had some injuries. There's some off-the-field concerns. Seems fitting for Cleveland. And if it works out, man, it could be a big hit for the Cleveland Browns at wide receiver. We finished with Kobe Turner on the defensive line and Mapu, who's going to be like a linebacker-safety hybrid. No one's really sure where he's going to play. But given the fact that the Browns need linebacker and maybe even a strong safety, he's going to bring some versatility there for their needs on the back end of their defense. Dallas, we started with Dalton Kincaid. Into that, I actually hate this draft for Dallas. Really, the first 4 picks are all players I liked during the draft process. Keanu Benton he'll probably be a starter sooner or later at defensive tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. We got Zach Charbonnet, who's a nice power complementary option to Tony Pollard. Servassier Dennis, explosive linebacker, a lot of production at Pitt, one of my favorite linebackers in a pretty weak linebacker class, all things considered. So I think that's some solid depth there. We got McClendon Curtis on the offensive line. Rakeem Jarrett, former 5-star recruit from Maryland at wide receiver. And we got Miles Brooks there, kind of BPA late round at corner. Denver, much like Cleveland, had to wait a little bit for a pick. We got Derek Hall at edge rusher, Corey Trice at corner. Maybe a little early for Corey Trice, but at 6'3", I think he's a great compliment if they have him. Patrick Surtain can go a long way in adding some youth to that corner room. We got Overshown at middle linebacker. Jalen Redmond would be a 3 technique and or defensive end for the, he'd be most likely a defensive end for the 3-4 front there. And then we got Alex Forsyth, the center from Oregon, just adding some depth to the interior of that offensive line. Detroit, after the Witherspoon and Bryan Bresee selections, we got Luke Musgrave at tight end. Dan Campbell is a former tight end coach, someone like Luke Musgrave, who athletically speaking has a profile as good as any at the tight end spot in a strong tight end class. But he's got to need his coaching up. He's got to need the development, and I think Dan Campbell could bring that out of him. We got Jack Campbell. That just looks like a long-term pairing. Very successful 5 years, easy, between him and Rodriguez at linebacker. We get A.T. Perry's an outside wide receiver. I decided to go earlier than later at wide receiver with this big suspension that they had to Jameson Williams, and they pretty much had to get rid of Quentin Cephas. So I think adding wide receiver depth makes sense for the Detroit Lions. We got DJ Johnson, developmental edge rusher. Nick Broker can play but play guard and or tackle. We got Coburn, who's a nose tackle, and Dwayne McBride, a very, very productive running back, who is a running back. He's your Jamal Williams type replacement. I think he has 5 career catches, but he also has like 60 touchdowns in his college career. Green Bay. So we got Bryan Bresee in the first round. I wanted to give them a tight end. Came around, got Sam Laporta out of Iowa at pick 45. Reminds me a lot of Dallas Goedert for the Philadelphia Eagles. We got Marvin Mims, who's one of my favorite slots in this year's draft class. We got Andre Carter, who's a value pick at edge rusher. Kind of a question mark, but at 6'7", has a lot of elite traits. 2 years ago at Army. Almost looked like he was going to be a first-round pick out of Army. Fell a little bit, didn't test as well, but there's definitely a player there. Same with Brandon Joseph. This is a guy that absolute ball hawk, had insane interception numbers at Northwestern, transferred to Notre Dame, kind of fell off a little bit, but a nice developmental safety. And then we just a lot of depth picks there, building on the lines, getting in more, power running back there in Evan Hall. Elijah Higgins might have been great value in the 7th round. A lot of people think he's going 5th round. He was still on the board at wide receiver. So some value picks there for Green Bay. But really the big two is landing a safety, a tight end, and a nice starting wide receiver. I think Mims starts sooner than later for Green Bay. Take a look at the Houston Texans after Stroud and Van Ness. We got Jalen Hyatt to come in and be the speedster on the outside to replace what they had in Brandon Cooks. Henley is a developmental linebacker, and who better to develop him than D'Amico Ryans. We have Tui Pelotu, who's an edge rusher, maybe... He was like one of the more polarizing weigh-ins because he was 266 at the combine, but USC listed him at 290. So a lot of people think that he probably will be like a tweener between a 3 technique and an edge rusher. And I want to add a 3 technique there for Houston. We got Davis Allen, solid tight end out of Clemson. Xavier Hutchinson, great value. Didn't test the best, but a lot of production at Iowa State. Luter's a good athlete at corner. Fisher at Shepherd, he is one of the Raz Kings, one of those Razzers.com, if you know what I'm saying, right? But he's one of those guys that's a small school player. He's older. I think he's 25. But he put up like a 9'6" Raz, can play tackle and guard. So there's just one of those high ceiling, high athletic type offensive linemen that seem to have been hitting lately. We got Helens from Alabama. I drafted a long snapper because this is a draftable long snapper according to Dane Brugler's draft guide, and the Houston Texans looked like they needed one. And then I got Hunter Lipke at fullback. He's going to be a fullback, and maybe D'Amico Ryans is going to want that Juszczyk style addition to the Houston Texans offense, and Lipke is easily the most draftable fullback in this year's draft class. A very fun player. Indianapolis. We got Anthony Richardson. After that, we went height, weight, speed, developmental corner in Keely Ringo. We got to step up for the void left by Stephon Gilmore. We got Tyler Scott as your gadget speedster wide receiver. Paris Campbell's gone, so that's going to kind of be your replacement. Ekiyor's a guard. Hampton's an athletic edge rusher. We got Michael Wilson, kind of a tough blocking, reminds me of Zach Pascal, maybe style wide receiver for the offense. We got Jarrett Patterson at center. I think there's some solid value there. And then we got 2 nice athletes rounding out the draft at corner and tackle. Jacksonville. After Myles Murphy went out and got maybe, when all is said and done, the best nickel in this year's draft class, which is a big need for the Jags, in Clark Phillips III out of Utah. Didn't test well, but he's a much better football player than he is athlete. We got Schoonmaker, who had a breakout year at Michigan last season. Great athlete at tight end. We have Carl Brooks, who was a 300-pound defensive end at Bowling Green. Likely is going to be a 3 technique at the next level. Jordan McFadden has played an insane amount of snaps for Clemson at tackle, but because of lack of length, he was like a 6'2" starting tackle. He's going to kick in a guard. And we got McClendon there. We finished with Chris Rodriguez, very productive SEC running back, has been really one of the main weapons for Kentucky, it feels like, for the last 5 years. And then we got Clayton Tune, a great athlete for a backup quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. Kansas City, they just had an insane amount of picks. Oftentimes for this, I was just kind of going BPA. We got Keon White at edge rusher. We got Charlie Jones, the breakout wide receiver from Purdue, ran 4.4. I think he's actually really, really underrated. Roshan Johnson, just to come in and be a complimentary option behind Isaiah Pacheco. Io Savis, height, weight, speed, almost a perfect Raz, 6'3", ran a 4.3, jumped out to the gym. Your MVS style burner for Patrick Mahomes. We got Gardner, who's a great corner. Good value there, tested well. I believe he was a transfer from Louisiana when Billy Napier left. Could be wrong. And then honestly, just kind of filled out with BPA, good athletes, guys with upside, filling out the depth chart there for the Kansas City Chiefs. Raiders, after going Gonzalez, we went Tomi Adebaware. I feel like for that 3-4, he can do a lot of things on that front. Gambling on the athleticism, making back-to-back Al Davis picks there with the pick 7 and 38. We got Iko, who's going to be a nose tackle. Josh Wiley, who I think is a really underrated tight end. He's probably my sleeper tight end in this year's draft class. JL Skinner, a 6'4 safety. You love the sound of that. We got Voorhees, really, really powerful guard. Wanya Morris, former 5-star recruit at tackle. See if you can put it all together. We got Tanner McKee, who kind of fits. You know, if Jimmy Garoppolo's a style of quarterback and Jarrett Stidham's style of quarterback that, you know, McDaniels wants there, McKee could be, you know, former 5-star. Could be value there potentially. Isaiah Land is like a linebacker edge rusher hybrid. You got to really find out what his best position is, but put up absurd production at Florida A&M. Had like 2 years ago, 25.5 TFLs, 17 sacks in the season. So that's a nice guy to gamble on. We got Eric Gray, who's a receiving back. Trey Tucker, speedster at wide receiver. And we just finished with linebacker depth. I mean, when you're getting that late in the draft, talking about guys that more so can stick on the team via special teams. After Michael Mayer in the first round for the Chargers, we went Enodike Uzuma, edge rusher. Khalil Mack's not getting any younger. We got the speedster at wide receiver, Jaden Reed. Good value at 85. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees the field sooner than later. Jamie Robinson at safety. I like him. I wish he tested a little better, but he is a badass. Really, really tough player. Will be able to contribute on special teams. We got Zach Evans, was he a 5-star recruit? But he's had some issues. Looked good at TCU. Looked good at Ole Miss. Ran a 4.5. I think there definitely is some value there as the Chargers have a murky outlook on the running back room, depending on what happens with Austin Eckler. And then we just kind of finished with some solid depth there. Keitrell Clark and Ventrell Miller of my Florida Gators. Nice special teamer. The Rams did not have a lot of premier picks, but they had a lot of picks, so we tried our best to diversify. We got Will McDonald at edge rusher. Really, really good athlete. Should be able to, I think he's, maybe the knock against him, he's closer to his ceiling than he is, going to be able to elevate his game a whole lot and take big strides. So I think that's kind of good for the Rams because they need so many guys that can contribute on this rookie class. Same with Zavala. Very, very razzy guard. I think he put up like a 9.5, one of the most athletic guards in this year's draft class. Same with Steen. I think Steen may be close to his ceiling, but should be able to challenge for some starting reps this season on the offensive line. I like Blackman. Didn't test the best, but Mekhi Blackton is a nice man cover corner. So I think that kind of fits what the Rams need on the outside. We got Jaron Hall as your developmental quarterback, underrated arm. We got Mike Morris, who had a productive season with Michigan. He can kind of be flexible, maybe more of a 3-tech and or defensive end. And going in late, just kind of going for value picks here. Jay Ward's a good athlete. D. Winters, tackle machine for TCU. Sean Tucker, underrated running back. Wicks was best value available. Some people had him going in the 4th round. He was still available. And then I went with a wild card here in Jaleel Billingsley. Once upon a time, he was thought he could be in the mix with these like 1st, 2nd round tight ends. Had his issues off the field with, obviously Alabama had an ugly falling out. I don't think things ended the best at Texas, but we're kind of taking a swing here when the Rams don't have a lot of picks. It's not bad to take a gamble like that. Not a lot of picks here total for the Miami Dolphins. We got Cody Mock first on the offensive line. He can either be a guard or a tackle, which are 2 positions I think the Dolphins want to show up. And he's a great athlete. Zach Kuntz at 84. Pro comp is Mike Gesicki. See if he can come replace Mike Gesicki. We have Keaton Mitchell, who's a niche running back. He's like 190 pounds, but he also runs a 4.3, so he fits the mantra of the Miami Dolphins offense. And then we finish with Nick Jones, a 4.5, 1 speed corner out of Ball State. Underrated, but underrated corners are like the Dolphins had that corner last year. I literally can't remember his name. Never heard of him. Ended up starting. Never heard of him at any point during the draft process. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name here. You know who I'm probably talking about, especially if you're a Dolphin fan. So I like those underrated corners. Minnesota, after getting Deonte Banks, we went nickel and got Hodges Tomlinson. So they got outside corner, nickel corner. Trey Palmer's a great athlete, speedster at wide receiver. Jake Haener, good value quarterback at that point. I did want to add a quarterback at some point here. Who knows what's going on there, though? It's a wild card. Vikings could trade up and be more aggressive and get one of the big names at quarterback. Who knows what happens with Kirk Cousins? But Jake Haener is a very solid quarterback. Then we got B.J. Thompson, small school player. But anytime you have a 6'5" edge rusher that runs a 4.5, those are the guys that you want to try to gamble on those traits. Patriots. Well, we had a Patriot draft. After JSN, we got Matthew Bergeron, the Canadian tackle. Tackle is a need for the New England Patriots. White corner. That's Bill Belichick. Jatavius Martin, Quan Martin, ridiculous athlete, had like a 44-inch vertical, so an explosive safety to add to a secondary that needs to get a little bit younger. We got Ivan Pace, good athlete, kind of a niche linebacker at 5'10". So like anytime you get niche players, it's almost fair to assume Bill Belichick's going to be interested. We got Latu at tight end. We went Jake Moody, the first kicker on mock draft. They do need a kicker replacement. Incoom's a great athlete, could be a rotational edge rusher. Deuce Vaughn, another niche player. Throw him right to Bill Belichick. Bryce Behringer at punter, kind of redoing the Patriots special teams here. And then we finish with Bostic at, he's really a lineman. He can play tackle and or guard. New Orleans Saints, after Calijah Kancey, we went Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't love this selection, but it does seem like you look at like needs for the Saints. A lot of Saints fans are saying let's continue to add into the running back room. Maybe the uncertainty of like suspensions or whatever for Alvin Kamara is what it is. But we got Jahmyr Gibbs. We got Tucker Kraft at South Dakota State. KJ Henry out of Clemson, former 5-star recruit, underrated. Connor's a nice safety. Parker Washington, slot wide receiver. We got a nose tackle in Gerard Clark. And Arquan Bush, I was hoping he would follow my Philadelphia Eagles late. I think he's a really, really nice slot corner, can play some safety, big hitter at corner. So that's an interesting weapon there for the Saints. New York Jets, after Broderick, we just went on the offensive line. We got Joe Tippmann, highest graded center by many people in this year's draft class, should be plug and play. We got Mozzie Smith as your one technique, your nose tackle to play along Quinnen Williams. Nick Herbig, niche linebacker, could be developing to like a sideline off-ball linebacker, could be a little bit of a pass rusher. I think he's more trending in that direction. So he's just a nice utility linebacker for the defense there. Daniel Scott, height, weight, speed, Raz monster, was one of the best athletes at the combine at the safety spot. And then we got Dante Stills as some depth behind Quinnen Williams. New York Giants, after Quentin Johnston, we went guard and Steve Avila. Even though I'm pretty sure Avila has experience playing every position on the offensive line. He's played guard, he's played center, and a little bit of tackle. So there's some versatility there. We went the athletic linebacker Dorian Williams out of Tulane. We then got Cameron Mitchell, and I went Oluwatimi, Virginia transfer to Michigan. He's a center. Jason Taylor tested well. We got Ojukwu out of Boise State, another high RAS score tackle, athletic tackle you want to gamble on. Mohamed Ibrahim might have been a lot higher if he didn't suffer a pretty bad injury at Minnesota. Very productive, though, just adding to that running back room. And we got a depth edge rusher. And hey, Stetson Bennett. Why? Someone had to draft him. Why not? I think Brian Dable would be a fan. Look at my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I do eye roll a little bit because those are the only two trades I made, but it is what it is. Love my haul for the most part. We got Bijan Robinson, Ojulari, who can be the successor for Brandon Graham. Julius Brents can either be viewed as a safety and get on the field sooner than later, or developmental corner behind Slay and Bradbury, who are not getting any younger. Drew Sanders is a hybrid linebacker edge rusher. Don't know how we're going to classify him, but I will just more so say put him in the backup to Hassan Riddick role. Jair Brown, love him as a safety prospect. We got DTR as our backup quarterback. Jake Witt is one of the near S-tier offensive tackle prospects. I want him to be a member of Jeff Stoutland U. I did think about going punter here, but I think an underrated need for the Philadelphia Eagles, as much as Britton Covey was solid, is that we need a return man. And Darius Davis from TCU is one of the best return men in college football, 4.3 speed. I want to add that on there late for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pittsburgh Steelers, honestly, one of my favorite drafts, I think. After getting Joey Porter Jr., we got a tackle there, and Anton Harrison should challenge to start sooner than later. DJ Turner is 4.2 speed at a nickel. They needed a nickel corner. We got Antonio Johnson, who likely could honestly start from them at safety as your Terrell Edmonds replacement. Yasir Abdullah, a freak athlete, running 4.3, low 4.4s at the combine. Insane production at Louisville. We got Nesta Jade Silvera, probably a 3-4 defensive end. And then a classic Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver pick. Matt Landers, 6'4", ran a 4.3. There you go. There's your Martavis Bryant experiment for Pittsburgh. 49ers did not have a lot of premier picks, but they had a lot of picks, so I had to make sure we diversified, but also got good players. We got Sidney Brown, ridiculous athlete, Canadian, would love it. Missed tackles are a little bit of an issue, but I think you need to try to shore up that safety spot after losing Jimmy Ward to free agency. Saldivari at tackle, very athletic tackle. Same with Ricky Strongberg at center. Both these guys just outstanding athletes for their position. Jalen Jones, 6'2" corner with 4.5 speed, developmental. Robert Beal, the edge rusher from Georgia, developmental edge rusher, great athlete. Will Mallory from tight end from Miami. Well, he was like a top 5 recruit when he was coming out. Just adding a little bit more depth. Got some good juice there as a receiver for the 49ers behind George Kittle. We got kicker, running back. I mean, just BPAs there, kind of finishing out the draft. Demario Douglas, I think he's a little bit of a sleeper wide receiver in this year's draft class. Has a very exciting highlight reel to watch from his time at and playing with Malik Willis. We got the Seattle Seahawks staying within the division. So after the first 2 picks, we got Osiris Torrance, which is one of the best value selections, especially for a need. Seattle needs a new starting guard. They also need a new starting center. John Michael Schmitz, pro-ready starting center. Should be able to contribute right away. We got Tank Dell, who can come in and be a slot wide receiver, give you a little bit more versatility in terms of moving around Tyler Lockett. And those guys aren't getting any younger. Noah Sewell is a project linebacker. Chase Brown is a nice committee option pretty much for his home run hit ability. Can replace what you lost in Rashad Penny. Eli Ricks is a developmental corner. We got Kobe Wooden, who's a 3 technique, and Aiden O'Connell, who can come in and potentially challenge for some backup quarterback reps behind Geno Smith. Tampa Bay. So they traded up for Hendon Hooker. That was the last we saw. We got Jordan Battle. Pretty safe. Maybe not the highest ceiling, but a pretty high floor safety out of Alabama. We got Tavius Robinson, the edge rusher, the Canadian. He's an edge rusher that I'm really, really high on as a sleeper. 6'6", ran a 4.6. Good production last year in the SEC. I think he's ascending. We got Starling Thomas, who's going to be a nickelback, almost 4.2 speed, very, very fast. And then we just finish up with some depth there on the offense and defense. Got the Tennessee Titans. Skoronski. Then I got Jonathan Mingo. Does have some A.J. Brown to his game. He's a better athlete than A.J. Brown. Maybe not as refined as a receiver right now. But I think Mingo and Treylon Burks, those are 2 really nice young skill position pieces that the Tennessee Titans can build around. We got Whippler, who's going to be a starting center. City Sal, Raz King. Super, super athletic. Has some experience at tackle. Likely will move into guard. That's where I projected him here for the Tennessee Titans, kind of shore up the offensive line. And then we finish up with 2 athletes. We got Lonnie Phelps, productive edge rusher at Kansas, and ran a 4.5. And then we got Deneric Prince, who was the fastest 40-yard dash time, I think, for the running backs at the combine. He's like 215 pounds. So he's a really interesting runner, especially with the uncertainty, if you're believing the dirt sheets, around the availability of Derrick Henry. If they decide to move on, who knows? And then lastly, we're finishing up the recap with the Washington Commanders, who traded up to get Will Levis. Outside of that, we got Jalen Duncan, who's a nice developmental, athletic offensive tackle. Blue Kelly, inside-outside corners, add some depth to the corner room. Definitely something that the Commanders want to improve upon. John Gaines is an athletic guard. Diabate is an athletic linebacker. The same way when they drafted Cole Holcomb, just drafting an athletic, productive linebacker. That is Diabate, who didn't really work out at Florida, transferred to Utah, put up some pretty big numbers. I think he ran the 4.5s at 6'3". We got Valentine at corner, and then Jake Andrews at center for the Commanders, kind of finishing out some depth along the offensive line. So there you go, fellas. That is my 7-round mock draft. It took me all day to get it out, but I finally got here. What do you guys think? Do you like what I did with your team? Do you hate what you did with your team? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll be back in terms of mock drafts on Wednesday with just the first round, as I'm trying to predict how the actual first round will go, and that's always, a shit show, but it's fun nonetheless, and that's all mock drafts are at the end of the day. So thank you guys very much for watching. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and I'll see you back in the next one. Peace out.